you to this session on understanding craft businesses. And it gives me great pleasure once again to welcome Professor Suresh Bhagavatula, who's a professor of entrepreneurship. He brings a very unique perspective given his research work and experience, not just in entrepreneurship, but also in the role of social networks. He has been deeply involved with craft businesses, has worked with the micro entrepreneurs and others in various districts in Andhra Pradesh, and is very involved with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship at the N.S. Raghavan Center for Entrepreneurial Learning at IIM-Bangalore. So he brings a wealth of understanding, insights, and knowledge about not just entrepreneurship, but more specifically and more comprehensively relevant for us today is the craft business. And he will talk about what is cultural entrepreneurship, how should one approach it, what's the entrepreneurial mindset, the complexities and opportunities for craft entrepreneurs, and why is it important to build valuable, successful cultural businesses. So with that very brief introduction, I now hand over the floor, so to speak, or the screen actually, to Suresh Bhagavatula. Over to you, Suresh.
Thanks a lot, Sanjay. Thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to be here because over the years, I have always been thinking that there is so much potential in crafts that can be converted into enterprises, but there never have been very many, what I would say, concentrated efforts to nurture this sector. So I will share a small PPT. Much of it, you may already know in terms of, given that you all are craft entrepreneurs, but I'm also hoping some of y'all are individuals interested in this sector. So for me, I kind of give a brief, what I would say, background to what it was and then what it is very quickly. And then also talk a bit about what I think are main barriers. Because if the sector has to grow, then we need to create an enabling environment for people to start and run their ventures, right? So that we can get through conversations. I would like to keep a lot of conversations. So I'm kind of setting the stage. In the next 20 minutes, I will run through some of my thoughts. May seem aligned with your thought, may be completely orthogonal to your thoughts, but that's okay. We are here to brainstorm, interact, and that's what I'm looking at. So it is usually said that up in 1850, that 1750, sorry, that India accounted for 1/4 of world's manufacturing output, but by 1900, that was down to 2%. So much of what India was exporting was handloom, crafts, and spices. But a significant component of that export was handloom and handicrafts. So there are lots of work starting from Karl Marx, who said how British have systematically deindustrialized India. And what we currently see is perhaps something that has not happened anywhere else in the world. So once the deindustrialization of the craft and the skills kind of started, most countries, handloom, handicrafts have gone out of existence. But it's not been the case in India, right? So, but let's go back and see, why was India so good? So here's a piece of textile, right, which is from the museum, Met. So if you look at it, They say this is about 400-500 years old. 400-500 years ago, or even earlier, 1,000 years ago, we were able to come up with colors that nobody else in the world could. We understood dyes, we understood printing, we understood weaving much better than anybody else in the world. In fact, if you look at the history, much of the industrialization or the attempt to industrialize by British and some of these European nations was predominantly to break the hold that Indian textiles were having in the world. It was said that in order to bring down the attractiveness of Indian textiles, large taxes were levied. But even in spite of that, when customers were found wearing Indian textiles, they were stripped in public. And that is how the industrialized textiles, which were so coarse, so bad, started to have a foothold and then compete. Not by fair means, but by using politics and guile, right? So look at these pieces of textiles. They seem as if they were made yesterday. Color fastedness, not many could understand the way we could understand. And a lot of this knowledge we still have. Much of it is lost, but thanks to the attempts of a lot of passionate individuals over the last 100 years, we do understand what it is to create colors like this, patterns like this, textiles like this. So unlike in most parts of the world, developing functional and aesthetic products by skilled craftsmen using hand-operated machine remains today in India. So this Dokra art piece that you see was made by people thousands of years ago, maybe hundreds of years ago. I'm not a historian, but for a significantly large portion of our existence, we were able to make things by our hand. I don't know whether it is sadly or fortunately, we still, sadly, in the sense that for me, sadly, we were not able to move this craftsman up on the economic scale. But fortunately, the skill still exists for us to play around with it. Right? That's how I look at it. So if you look at the India, how did we get to be here, right? So if you look at the revival story, we have stalwarts like Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, who went around the nation, documented the crafts, her classic Glory of Indian Handicrafts, where she went to every nook and corner of our nation and documented what is made there. And if you go back to the very same clusters now, I'm not sure about 90 years later, I'm not sure how many people continue this trade. Right? So we have lost skills in many crafts, but she, thanks to her Kalamkari is what it is right now, thanks to her Pochapalli is what it is right now, and she was instrumental in playing a role in growing our handloom cooperatives in order to give greater degrees of freedom to the producers. Then there was another revival story through Pupil Jaikar, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, where they started having places where you could buy handloom, like Handloom House, Festivals of India. So the interesting thing about Festivals of India was that our leaders expected the world to consume our products. But instead, what happened was our designers started to interact with craftsmen, and thereby Indian consumers started to consume the cultural products. So the growth of Fab India, the growth of Anodhi, all of them happened not because at that point of time they imagined India to be the market. They did not imagine India to be the market. They looked at Festival of India in Paris, in Moscow, in New York. But then in order to bring products there was a huge interaction between local craftsmen and Indian designers. So this is where we are right now. We are 100 million people still connected to the handloom industry. 6 million people continue to be associated with various handicrafts across the nation. This, in many ways, are more than lots of countries that we have in the world, right? So where are we? We are looking at a new India where the bridal markets are growing, designer products are growing up. There are entrepreneurs. I'll come back to it towards the end, but Upada is an out and out master weaver story. What do you mean by master weavers, right? And I'll talk about it and what my thoughts are with respect to the master weavers later. So where do we stand? I just have a bunch of slides where I would want you all to think. What is it that we want to do? At no point of time in India, there has been a fork where we can let our crafts die like everywhere else. We can let the skilled people join the unskilled workforce. There was a picture by Ujrama some years ago where a skilled weaver was very happy, he got a job, and he showed her the card, and his designation was unskilled labor. And she was very pained by it. Here is a person who can weave wonderful saris. It's just that his skill set is not relevant to modern India, and we relegate him to unskilled labor. So are we going to do that? Or is it possible for us to start to imagine a world or start to imagine India, basically, where the craftsmen start to have an extremely decent wages, extremely decent life, that they, like you and me, continue to remain in their craft and do well in life. When I say be prosperous, because if you look at the current craft sector, craftsmen are not at all able to support themselves using the craft they have. Significant. I'm not saying everyone, fortunately. There are best practices that we can bring in to make craftsmen be better at their livelihoods. But the question is for us, all of us are concerned, all of us who have some affiliation, some affinity, even if it's not affiliation, some affinity to these handcrafted products, we should not let this industry go out of existence. We will have to leverage the new age possibilities and connect to these skill sets that have been in existence in our nation for thousands of years. So, but what is the barrier? The first barrier I see is that only a small population is interested in crafts. Most individuals are not bothered about, is it block print? Is it screen print? Is it machine print? They're not bothered. They're only bothered about price. Is this cheaper? So in order for certain products to be cheaper, you need to mechanize it. And if we're going to mechanize products, then craftsmen won't have a place there. So that to me is a big barrier right now. If we want to make this a sunrise industry, we will have to figure out how do we get more people to be interested in crafts. Not increasing craft aficionados, right? If I go to crafts exhibitions, there are very few people who get excited by looking at cotton jamdani, which is of 200 count. It looks very simple. It is cotton, cotton by cotton, 200 count, hand spun. How many people would get excited because of that? Would you wear cotton by cotton, hand spun, hand woven, cotton jamdani worth 1.25 lakhs? And would you narrate this story? Because I met some people who were telling me in one of our entrepreneurship classes that he's wearing 1.5 lakh rupees shoes. I said, why? Do they walk by themselves? No, these are handcrafted. The leather is blah, 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 blah. The sole is blah, 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 blah. The stitch is blah, 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 blah. So if you look at the way in which it is being done, is using a technique that was done in 800 years ago. He's talking about it. Look at Swiss watches. You don't need Swiss watches to tell you accurate time. They're not accurate at all. Our watches, those little electronic watches, are likely to be more accurate than Swiss watches. But why would somebody use a handmade Swiss watch? You stay in queue. I think 2 days ago, in one of those Saturday newspapers, I was reading why somebody had to wait for months for a watch because it's not available. The handcrafted, something they were saying, something else. So how do you get people to be excited about the fact that this is traditional double ikat patola, right? Or this particular mirror is made from metal, or this particular Telia Rumal. Would we even pay a lot of money for Telia Rumal? We don't, because we don't even understand what a Telia Rumal is. We have no idea why was it used for. It looks dull. It looks oily. Why is it so? So unless we create stories around crafts that people talk about it, you know what? This is handmade and why and what was its history. We need to create people who are passionate about craft and who come and talk to you about that passion, right? And that is what those brands are made, those whiskey brands, those Japanese textile brands, Swiss watch brands. They're all handmade, but they talk about it. Wines, why would you talk about it? Look at it. Wine appreciation classes. Do we have a craft appreciation classes? Is there craft appreciation classes in colleges? Are we talking to students about this is what it is? Have they ever picked up and touched and felt a 200 count cotton by cotton jamdani sari, how it feels? Or punduru fabric after like 5 washes, how soft it is? We don't, because we haven't created. I'm not saying that I'm casting aspersions in the past. I'm only saying that how do we now go forward from here, right? Design. This is another big thing that I have, design. Designs are led by intermediate. These are being trained in craft design institution. I have nothing against the design institutions, given that one of the design institutions is part of this initiative. But then how do we convert craftsmen into designers? Do we look at historical origins of design? Like, are we looking at a very Bauhausish kind of design? Are we looking at aesthetics that are inspired from India? Because you don't have aesthetic conversation about what happened or what was on a sari 200 years ago, what was on a sari 90 years ago. Is that the kind of sari? We don't document what is on a sari, right? We don't document what is our skill set. And we seem to understand that how, as in, even if it is documented, it's not available. It may be documented. I'm sure these are documented. Excuse me, I'm a business school professor, so you could give it to me that I may not know everything. But I think we need to make design much more accessible. We need to create grassroots designers. We need to create more design-led interventions. We are far too few designers in this country. Right? And if you look at Charles Eames' India design report that he wrote in 1958, he talked about lota, he talked about those brass pots, and huge eulogy to say that this is one of the most well-designed product that he has seen. Okay, so if what I would say illiterate craftsmen over the years could come up with products like that, we need to convert craftsmen into designers. Right? Bringing middlemen into the conversation. I think the time to come to say that middlemen are bad, we are good, or NGOs are good, cooperatives are good, so framing the ecosystem into good and bad, we don't have a choice anymore. We are at an instance where we are pro-craft or we are pro-industry. That it's okay for crafts to die, we'll convert them into some other industry. If that is an attitude, okay. But if you would want to be pro-craft, time to bring middlemen into conversation. We need to figure out how do we talk to these master weavers, how do we talk to these middlemen. And I would like to end here by saying the time to build the craft economy, time to build leveraging cultural entrepreneurship is now. We lose this, we're going to lose all the skill sets, all our knowledge to posterity. We can only look into, go to museums and say, there was a time we could make things like this, but alas, it's no more. Let's not get to that state. Let's work on it right now. Digital media is possible, telling stories is possible, documentation is possible. If there is any point of time when all of these are so easy, so in our hands, it's now, right? So time for all of us to come together and bring about a craft way of living, a much more natural way of existence than this ultra-industrialized world that we're going into. Let's stop here. There should be a bunch of questions, but happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Suresh. Thanks a lot. So let me just kick off with the first question that I have, and then we'll move on to the questions from the audience. You talked about Swiss watches and all of that. Very well-made point that, about Switzerland. One of the interesting things about Switzerland as well is that Switzerland is obviously known for chocolates, and it doesn't even grow cocoa that is used to make the final product, right? And it branded and all of that. But here's an interesting thing about Switzerland. Switzerland's exports coffee worth $2 billion. India, which grows coffee, exports only about $370 million worth, right? So approximately 7 times India's coffee exports is done by Switzerland. And the reason for that is that it's all branded, it is packaged right, it's got multiple flavors, and they've got the distribution channels set up. And what we do is we supply only commodity, yes, which is raw coffee beans, right? Now, therefore, the question is, you talked, and I think you made a very powerful point about the time for crafts being now, namely the design, the networks, the technology, and all of that being available. With regard to therefore moving from commodity work to brands that get a higher price in the market. You talked about the shoe, for example, right? $150,000. That's a branded shoe. It's packaged. Its story is told right. It's distributed in the right places. All of those things. So, does it therefore mean that we need to have those kinds of capabilities? That is the market facing, understanding different market segments, user segments, design, technology, digital platforms, packaging, blah, 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 all of that. So there are jugalbandi between that as well as the fantastic talent of all the craftspeople.
So I believe that we need to play around with something called categories. So how do we create categories? So there is a Seiko watch, there is a smuggled watch, there is Titan watch, there is Swiss watch. So they are creating categories, and they're creating boundaries around those categories by telling stories. So if we need to get there, we need to educate a lot more people in order to get to those kind of categories. If you look at HMT, and so what we are, where we are right now is HMT kind of watch production in this nation. What we need to become is more Titan kind of watch production, where our experience of looking at those crafts will have to change. Our interactions, our stories, how do we engage will have to change, right? So category play. So we need to look at how wines change the categories. Like for instance, right? American wines were considered useless, but over the years, they started to play the category game. So we need to know how to play this category game of, like for instance, right? The colors. The entire formal fashion industry, in order to predict colors of 2024, you pay lakhs of rupees right now to Patone to give you those colors. Who does that for craftsmen? Who does for handloom industry? Right. Handloom industry is 10,000 crore business. Who does it? Nobody. Right? So we need to start to understand, we need to have hundreds of PhDs to be able to do that.
Got it.
But it is possible, and we need to start doing it.
Correct. So I think that, if it's possible, it is doable, right? And
yeah,
very, very, very true. Now, there are some questions that have come in from the audience members, from Arpita and from Desmond Nazareth, about, I hear about, designers talk about design intervention initiated by institute-trained designers as being important for craft. But does it convey that craftspeople don't really have an inherent sense of design that is contemporary, and therefore what should be done to make it contemporary? Second is, does the GI, the geographic indicator of origin, is that useful for craft products?
Let me take the easy one first. Yeah. GI is not of any use to a craft product. Like for instance, right? Champagne, there is this Dom Perignon or whoever is supposed to have got this champagne in.
Right.
Prior to 1830 or 1840, you don't see him in the champagne stories.
Right.
So it was a planted story at some point of time,
right.
And it now becomes a narrative, right? I've seen that with Upada even. Right. Upada, they say, and it's a narrative.
The storytelling becomes important.
Yeah. So storytelling becomes more important than GI. Because GI, if you go back into history, all of them are exports from some part or the other.
Yeah. Got it. So the other question was about design intervention. How do you get the craftspeople to design stuff in a contemporary manner? And is that something that can be trained? Should there be craft schools set up across the country? What are the 2-3 quick interventions that are necessary?
I am a renegade. I have a completely, what I would say, different position on this. I start to question this contemporary design, ethnic design, all over sari. I think we need to understand what is contemporary design, right? You are telling this is contemporary. If white space is contemporary, that's not contemporary. What is contemporary design by itself? By having, they say, oh, something is large. But if you look at most of the designers, most of the craftsmen, they understand proportions. They understand a lot of things. It is we who are not trying to understand their design sensibilities, right? I don't know. I just think there is a lot more conversation which is required in this entire phenomena of making contemporary, non-contemporary. But we do need to create barefoot craftsmen. Craftsmen will have to be trained into designers.
Got it. So basically, contemporary is just a word. I can take something that is 1,000 years old and make it very relevant for the audience of today, so that they pay serious money and is available in the right ambience, the right quality and all of that. Two quick questions again, in the interest of time as well. One is, how does one ensure that there is quality, consistent quality that gets delivered? What needs to happen for that? And you talked about middlemen being part of the value chain, that we need to necessarily engage with middlemen. How does one ensure that middlemen stay true and fair to the artisans? Is there any mechanism to resort that can be implemented?
Look, I can go on for an hour on that middlemen and cash and being fair. Let me be totally controversial and say that middlemen are as fair as they can be. If you were in that position, we want our stock market to, what you call it, multi-bagger, like 10x, 20x, 100x. So we would want to put in 1 lakh rupees and get 10 crore rupees. So, but we are asking these middlemen who are putting in their own money, creating products with a probability of success, saying that, you know what, you be fair to craftsmen. Or why should he put his 30 lakh rupees and be fair to craftsmen when we are putting in our money and want multi-bagger? That's a separate story. The reason why a lot of these middlemen also will have to give very little money to craftsmen is because we don't factor in cost of money. What is the cost of money to a middleman? Is it 0 rupees? Is it 36%? Because we need to understand that if he makes a product right now, he has to pay for the raw material and he gets his money back, let's say 5 months later. Who's going to pay the cost of money for this entire 6 months of the product not being converted into cash? So if we very naively connect the price of the product to how much is he paying the final weaver, and then minus A and B and say that he's keeping all of it? No. There's a lot of money that goes into cost of money, and the cost of money, you bring the cost of the money down. You tell master weavers that, boss, here is 3%. I'll give you money at 6% or 3%. Now be fair to people. They will do that.
Understand.
They get serious money at unbelievable rate, 36%, 40% interest rate. Right. And then there was another question before that. I can keep going on this middleman. But I'm just saying that let's start.
So we need to get educated more.
Not all middlemen are good, but I'm saying not all middlemen are bad either. Right? If you start to look at this as, okay, let's bring some people into the conversation. Let's start to look at why are the way they are. And let's not look at these naive assumptions that they are exploitative.
Got it. So basically, I think what your larger point, if I were to paraphrase it in that sense, is that a lot more education and awareness needs to take place about how the whole process works, how this margin business plays out, what is actually the role of the so-called middleman, what does the craftsperson do, how does it reach us as the final retail consumer who is unwilling to pay a premium, right? That is the key point. We are not willing to pay a premium, but we want everyone else to bear that cost, right? Are we willing, right? And therefore, I think branding becomes critical, is it not? In the sense that the brand gives you the premium, right? I will pay top money for an overseas brand, but for an Indian brand, I will not. I mean, at a Darshini coffee, I will pay 20 rupees, and Starbucks, I'll pay 250 bucks.
Exactly.
right? And that mindset, the quality, the positioning, the packaging, the ambience, the whole 9 yards has to come into place for this craft business to really start getting its due.
Or even the watch, right?
Yeah.
It's still not branded, but it is done using some Da Vinci's methodology, right? So it is
the storytelling and packaging around it. Wonderful. I think there's a long series of questions coming in, Suresh. And you struck a.
Sorry, guys, if I've been like completely controversial. But
no. It's good. It's good because otherwise we keep hearing the same thing over and over again. And I think it's great that the questions have come. So what we will do in the interest of time, I don't want to hold you back. You're busy. What we will do is we will collate all these questions, send it off to you, and at your convenience, if you can share your responses. What we will do is we will publish this on our LinkedIn pages, etc. And folks can sort of see what your thoughts are.
Record this as and take all the questions and record because
any which way that you think, any way that works for you, Suresh. It's this thing. We will sort of collate and send across all the material to you. And so we're completely out of time, unfortunately. It's about 2 minutes or 3 minutes past our scheduled time. So I want to thank you very, very much, Suresh, for making time for us. And it is a big deal to have your involvement and your support and participation in an event like this. I'm sure it's of great value to all the audience members as well. So thank you once again, and look forward to having you again soon in our sessions.
Thanks a lot, Sanjay. Thanks for letting me speak my mind.
No, you should. If you don't speak our mind, then what's the point? Right? Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Suresh. Yeah. So you can exit now unless you wish to stay on. I'm sure you're busy, but anyway.
Yeah, I'll just stay for a little while and then.
Okay, wonderful, great. So thanks everybody to the audience for remaining and for being so active in sending across your questions. I hope this very short, almost an introductory session by Suresh was of use to you. Like he said, he can go on for hours and hours, and unfortunately, we don't have that amount of time. So I'd encourage you all to kindly post your questions in the Q&A box, and we will see his, and we will send it across to him and get his questions to come by. So now I think we've got our next 3 panelists who are here, and a warm welcome to all 3 of them. There is Disha Singh, who's the founder, CEO of Zouk. Welcome, Disha. Hello, is Disha there? Hello, Disha.
Disha, you'll have to increase your volume. We're not able to hear you. No, if there's an audio jack that's plugged in, you may want to remove it. Sanjay, maybe Disha will rejoin.
Okay, sure. All right. Second, we have Kunal Sachdev, who's the founder, CEO of Caravan Craft. And then we have Sujay Suresh, founder, CEO of Zwende. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So welcome, Kunal. Welcome, Sujay.
Thanks, Sanjay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Kunal.
All right. Wonderful to be here.
Wonderful. So what we will do, hi Disha, can we hear you now?
I can hear you now.
No, I'm saying we were having a bit of a problem hearing you. Because slightly better, perhaps. Yeah, if you can maybe.
I don't know. We have been saying.
Now this is good because I think perhaps you're speaking closer to the thing. Yeah.
Yes.
This is much better. Absolutely. Thank you. So what we'll do now is we've got 3 entrepreneurs, great experience, 3 different areas. And what, in the interest of time, I'm not going to keep talking about what they will talk about. It's better that they talk about it themselves. So we start off with Disha Singh, who's the founder CEO of Zouk, which is a very interesting company. And it's a company that's building branded vegan Indian-based products, which is a very fascinating domain all by itself. Kunal Sachdev has got enormous experience, great expertise in seeing how this entire craft business has evolved. He's doing some very interesting new stuff. He's an advisor to the government of Karnataka with regard to the arts and crafts area. So we will hear from Kunal Sachdev of Caravan Craft as well. And then we have Sujay Zwende, who is using technology, a digital platform, so to speak, in linking artisans, craftspeople with end consumers. So we will hear all their stories, what made them start, how their backgrounds helped, what are the challenges they face, and what they see as the opportunities, right? So thank you all once again for being here, making time for all of us here. And over to you, Disha. Each of the panelists will speak for about 20 minutes with a very quick presentation. Thereafter, we'll again have the audience members shoot their questions. All right. Thanks, Disha. Over to you.
Hey, hi, Sanjay. Thank you so much for having me again. Right, it's always wonderful to be on this platform and be interacting with you. Right, so thank you guys, and hi everyone. Right, as Sanjay said, I am working on so we are making vegan products. So let me just give an intro about myself first, and then I move on to what we are doing at Zouk, right? So I am the founder and CEO of Zouk. So we are a D2C brand building products which are for modern India, right? We make stylish and functional products with an essence of India. I heard Professor just sometime, I could just only hear him for last 5 minutes, and I heard him saying that yaar, contemporary word is fine, but we have to make products which suits the modern sensibility, and we have to make them at such price points that our today's generation buys them, right? And that is what exactly we are trying to do at Zouk, right? We are fusing the old to the new. So if you see any of our designs, it will all be taken inspiration from the, say for example, we recently launched a Chandra Mahal collection which was based on architecture in Jaipur, right? We picked up motifs from there and we put it on our bags, which are different kinds, like laptop bag, office bags, hands bag, which are used by today's modern India, right? And that is what we are here to build, right? And and in this 3 years of journey from, getting my first online order from one of my IIMA batchmate to getting love of more than 1 lakh happy customers across the country, it has been a very, very exciting and challenging journey as well, right? My journey basically started in my second year of MBA. So I was a part of a course in which, as a part of that course, we also went to a nearby village from Ahmedabad. So I've done my MBA from Ahmedabad. So we went to a nearby village, and there, apart from our course studies, we also met a lot of artisans there and saw a lot of different arts and crafts forms, right? And when it, everybody was like, yeah, India has such a good craftsmanship, they look so neat, and they have such a pop of colors and everything, right? But at the end, when it comes to buying, nobody was buying it, right? People were either, yeah, what will I do with this totem, for that matter, right? It does not fit the current setup that I have at home or hostel, or for that matter, anywhere, right? So I could clearly see that we do have a very high craftsmanship, but we are not making products which suits the modern use, right? And that is that has made me think about what we can actually do to fuse it together, right? And that is how I started thinking. Lifestyle is a very big domain, and I did my own secondary research as to which categories we can begin with based on its sizing. There's a whole way where you can you do your market research and figure out which category based on inventory, based on ease of doing business, and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure that a lot of folks in the audience must already be knowing about that, so I'll not touch upon it, right? And so after doing the secondary research, I figured that in bags, I could clearly see a gap, right? Like the kind of products which we currently make, which, have that Indian feel, have that, different kinds of prints and motives were missing, right? You could only see for Indian women, right? You could only see replica of, Western brands, right? And if you remove tags from all the other brands which are there in a market, you will not even be able to tell one apart from the other, right? Because they were just, copy of Western designs, right? And that is like, I could clearly see a gap, and that is how we started our journey of building Zouk, right? I got a Maverick scholarship from IMA to pursue my, entrepreneurial journey, right? And that is how I began, like after my second year. In the beginning, I just had that one sketch in my hand saying that, "Yaar, aisa bag banana hai," right? Or this is the vision that I have, right? And up till that point, I think that was the easiest part for me, right? The tough came after this, right? I did not belong to any manufacturing background or, hardly knew anybody. So we belong to a service background. My father is from defense, right? So, nowhere close we had anybody who could, help us understand how this whole process works. So, I took it on myself. And, I remember it was a time when we began, right? I used to daily go to Dharavi every morning till evening. I used to go to different karkhanas and just show the sketches and tell them कि यार ऐसा कुछ बनाना है मुझे, right? And I got rejected left, right, center, right? They were like, there were various reasons where people were not willing to make it. They were very comfortable with what they were doing currently. Second is they were not very sure whether I'm a serious buyer, right? There were a lot of concerns, right? But with I think I spent around a year a month grooming around Dharavi, and then we got our first karigar who was willing to make the bags that I had in mind, right? And that is how our journey started, right? From that one person to now having a 250 plus Karigar unit in Bombay is what the journey has been for me for the last 3 years. And have learned so much in this, in this past 3 years, not only about manufacturing, but also of hustling and, how getting things done, right? Like from when we started from a very small space near Dharavi, where, my first Karigar and I used to work, we had this one person who used to, along with me, send out, handwritten addresses when we used to get online orders, right? From coming from that to, building a 190K plus strong online community, we as a brand have come a long way, right? We are not only one of the few brands who are very heavy on our D2C brand, but I have also scaled pretty well on the marketplaces currently, right? So that has been my initial journey from where to where we are currently, right? And throughout this, I faced a lot of challenges. There were a lot of no's. There were a lot of things that I had to learn or relearn, right? And in these cases, we entrepreneurs generally, sometimes you have your lows and ups, right? But the thing that keeps an entrepreneur going is the larger vision that you have for your brand, right? Or for the thing that you are building, right? And in my case, it was, building that, iconic lifestyle fashion brand from India that always kept me motivating, right? And having said that, I also feel that this trait, which with the confidence and with the optimism I work today, is also been somewhere attributed with my the 2 years that I've spent while doing my MBA at IMA, right? There I have there I have not only learned the coursework, but apart from that, the bigger learnings that I have got while studying there. One was how to be a better marketer, right? Like, so every entrepreneur have to market, like selling is the thing, right? So I have learned marketing not only in courses, but I've stood for election in my first year of MBA, and what better way to learn entrepreneurship than learning marketing than selling yourself, right? So that was one of the things that I very early on got on and understood, that marketing and selling is a very, very core part of building a business in whichever domain you are in, right? And second is that the kind of peer group that you study with in these institutions, later on join different organizations where they can help you for the connects, products, right? And also they they work in different domains, right? Which you can gain from. Like, for example, I handle digital marketing at Zouk, right? And this is something that I have learned myself, right? With the help of one of my batchmates from IMA, right? Who used to head marketing at one of the e-commerce platforms, right? So that is, that is how these 2 years shapes you. And it's extremely, I'm very grateful for my alma mater for giving me this opportunity and giving me these kinds of experience, which has really helped me in my journey forward, right? I also feel that, one of the things that when we were taught at campus about, when you identify a problem or a gap in the market, that is not the only thing that you should be, you should be satisfied with. Kya yaar, maine gap find out kar liya, I figured out there is something which is not there in the market, right? The most important bit is to solve for it, right? And how we did it at Zouk is this, that when we figured out there was a gap in the market, we made our first product based on our secondary research. Then we went out in the market. We did more than 50 plus exhibitions across India. Like, I think I was present in almost all of them. That we talked to all of our customers. We understood what they like, what they didn't like, right? What are the things that we should change? What are the new things that we should bring in, right? And after all these, of course, it helped us in our cash flows as well, right? We have always been sustainable in that sense also, right? But apart from that, it's a very, very good learning curve in the very beginning of my journey, where I have talked to a lot of folks, right? Like, now most of the brands are built online, and it slightly becomes difficult to have that kind of a conversation, right? But I've been very grateful that I got that opportunity, and I talked to so many folks and understood. So at the end of this, we were pretty sure that when we launched our set of products, we were very sure that we are building, or we make products which our consumer wants, right? And that has been
Disha, let me just interrupt you. I think we're running low on time now.
Okay.
If you don't mind, just 30 seconds more, please.
Sure. So so I will just wrap it up and say that if you have a problem, try to find a solution for it. And when you find a solution for it, just don't base it on your ideas and what you think would be the right thing, right? Do talk to folks, right? Apart from that, an online brand is not only built on a very good product, like a winning product, right? It has to be always supported by an excellent customer service, a seamless buying experience, and a swift delivery, right? And that is how you build a lasting business in today's world, at least a lasting online business, right?
Got it.
So yeah, Sanjay,
thanks. No, thank you so much. Sorry for interrupting you.
No worries.
In the interest of time, I think you made some very, very good points. Namely, go out there, talk to customers, understand what they want, iterate like crazy, and don't just imagine that there are gaps in the market, right? Actually, go and do it. Yeah. Second speaker is Kunal Sachdev. With over 30 years of experience in the crafts business, it brings enormous knowledge and expertise about how to set up a craft business, what are the challenges, how to make things happen. So without further ado, it's over to you, Kunal. I believe there's a short video that Kunal will play before he speaks. So Kotiji, if you can kindly play that video of Kunal's.
Are you someone who uses Microsoft Excel at your work?
Thanks, Sanjay.
Hi, Kunal. Welcome.
Hi.
Over to you. The screen
Thanks
is
so
all
much.
yours. I can't say floor.
Unfortunately, I don't know what's happening. The video doesn't seem to be working, but if it's okay, I'll just go ahead with the voice. Is that fine?
Yeah, it is. It is. Just
So
try in
thanks.
between if you can get your video to work, but never mind.
I'm trying it. I don't know.
But anyway, in the interest of time, just
let me just go ahead.
So do you have
thanks,
slides to
Sanjay.
show?
No, I don't have any slides to show. I'll just
Okay,
I'll just
you'll
speak.
just speak. Okay, fantastic. Okay, okay.
So Sanjay, thanks for having
My pleasure.
Disha,
thanks to all of you for being here.
Yeah. So firstly, this video that I played actually is quite old, but it captures the essence of the journey of Caravan, and in a lot of ways, the kind of work that we've done is representative of the kind of artisanal inputs that we've taken to create products that are more globally aligned, that are relevant for customers not just in India but pretty much anywhere in the world. So the genesis of Caravan happened with my, during my earlier tenure at High Design. So I was CEO of High Design for many years, and as you know, I joined High Design in '96 to build the brand in India. And then I left in 2008 when Louis Vuitton came in to take a stake. So during my association with High Design, both in India and when I used to travel overseas and represent High Design in those markets, I realized that people internationally, especially, had great appreciation for handcrafted products. And we were selling this for the best department stores around the world. So in the UK, we sold in Selfridges, House of Razors. In the US, we were selling in Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf Goodman. In Australia, we were in David Jones, Myers. South Africa, Stutterfords, Edgar's. And essentially, I felt that if we could do it with one raw material, which is leather, I felt the same principle could be applied to multiple raw materials that artisans work with. And that was really the birth of Caravan as an idea. And we went down the brand journey in the first phase of our work. But soon enough, we realized that there's a much larger both opportunity to create impact as well as an opportunity to connect with customers that presented itself to us. And so we started exploring the B2B opportunity. And then pandemic hit, so we actually wound down retail completely. So now the focus for Caravan is largely B2B, and we work with buyers overseas. So we work with brands like Ralph Lauren, we work with a couple of French brands, we work with a brand called Joa, we work with a brand called Moamo, we work with a design studio in Paris. And the kind of work that we do, just to give you a sense, just recently, we did an order for Ralph Lauren, for example, for a jacket that they made, which is an unlined cotton fabric jacket, which they sold at $700 retail price. So obviously, there is great appreciation for a product well made, and people are willing to pay top dollar for it. So now they've come back for the next season's order for the same kind of jacket. So obviously, the jacket is done well for them. So this is just an example of the kind of value association that one can have with crafts, provided we get the core aspects of the product right, which means basically, I think the gap in the artisan space has been more around functionality. They have a great story to tell. There's been a lot of intervention done on aesthetics. A lot of the design institutes spend a significant time on aesthetics. But what's been largely unaddressed is the functional aspect of the product. And I think that's where we've made a difference. And that's how, Ralph Lauren came back and sourced hand-woven fabric from India after 20 years because they were just not able to get the quality that they wanted. But now we're on the verge of the next step, really, the next logical step in this direction. So just to give a quick backdrop, so there was a consumer movement happening in the world pre-pandemic, where consumers started moving towards products that were more responsible in sourcing, that were kinder to people and to nature. And during the pandemic, what happened, this whole entire process got accelerated. What's happened, with the mainstream brands is they are stuck with fairly rigid supply chains. So for them to quickly make that transition is not possible. So they're all trying to get their heads around it. They're making commitments that within 4 to 8 years, we're going to be making that transition. And we will get you products that you want, which are, sourced more responsibly or aligned to the kind of requirements and the kind of raw materials that you want. But in the interim, it's created a very unique and interesting opportunity. And the emergence of this entire D2C brand space, which has also now resulted in the emergence of D2C accelerators. So Thrasio model, which has succeeded really well in the US, now is being replicated in India. So we've got a bunch of people in India who are doing, who are running D2C accelerators, and Mensa, which became the fastest unicorn, happens to be one of them. So this shift of consumers offers a very, very unique and interesting opportunity for what we've inherited as traditional craft and the skills of these artisans to be globally aligned to the requirements of these customers. So we're actually putting together, as we speak, a craft venture builder, and we've got on board, some fairly key people well-known people from industry, including people like Biju Kurian. We've got Prashant Prakash, one of the partners at Axel Partners. We've got Anant Raman, professor at Harvard. So the whole bunch of people who kind of coming together to build out this venture builder. Essentially what we're doing is, with Caravan's capability of supply chain, we're looking to help young entrepreneurs, create brands for themselves. So what we're doing at the moment is we're scoping the market. We're doing some preliminary research on the product categories that we would like to be in. And we're looking also parallelly, we've started speaking to some potential entrepreneurs. So we're looking at 4 entrepreneurs in the first year, 4 in the next year, then we'll gradually start scaling up. The reason being, we want to be very sure that each of these entrepreneurs that we pick are successful at what they do. So we're looking for people who have the passion and the drive, who have the ability to, create customer relationships and deep customer associations. And we will provide the complete mentorship. We provide access to funding. We provide the entire, the whole 9 yards really, except for the fact that your go-to market and your drive and your passion needs to come into, to complete this whole jigsaw. So that's what I really wanted to talk about. Sanjay, I mean, if there are any questions, if people would like to connect with me offline, I'd be happy to do so. I know this is a short, presentation, so I don't want to take too much time. But so, I just wanted to, share this so that, if people are interested, they can, kind of reach out to me through you or through your team members.
Certainly, yeah.
To kind of connect with them.
So thanks, Kunal. Thank you very much. What we'll do is we'll wait for the Q&A, the questions to come in, and then we can respond to that. Subsequently, any further questions that cannot get answered due to paucity of time, we'll collate it and share it with all the 3 panelists. They can respond, and then we will have the audience members take a look at the responses. So now over to Sujay Suresh, founder, CEO of Zwende. I'll leave it to you to introduce your company and what you do and your learnings, your challenges, etc., and how you see this whole business evolve. Over to you, Sujay. Sujay, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sanjay. It's been great. I've been listening in since 2, and it's great to have these conversations going on, because I think it's a sector that, we are all really passionate about, and we know it has a lot of potential. And there are so many different ways in which all of us can together create, such a large impact in this space. And I think it's great to see so many people coming together on this platform. So thanks a lot again for having me on this. I'll just share my screen. Yeah. Yeah, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, Sujay. Yeah.
Yes, it's visible. Yes.
Cool. Okay, I'll just play this short video. And I hope it plays clearly, but yeah, so I think that's what Zwende is all about. We do things slightly differently. We are a technology platform, a maker to consumer platform that brings creative experiences and products that people love on a single platform. So we work with loads of art forms now, and we use technology to digitize the entire inventory of products and designs to make it available online. So I'll quickly run through some of the thoughts. It's a longer PPT, so I'll just run through some of the slides. But Zwende was started with my wife and my co-founder Inu. Her passion for the artisan handicraft space and my passion for technology and entrepreneurship, and our common cause or purpose to add more value to this ecosystem and figure out how we can help independent artists, designers, artisans scale, because there is a lot of potential, like we've all discussed, right? So we typically started with knowing the why of why do we want to build Zwende, correct? What is it that we want to do and why we want to do it? So is it passion? Is it purpose? Is it profit? Is it the right balance between those three? Correct. For some reason, I think in the craft business, the word profit was for the longest time seen as a little bit of a negative connotation. But I think if we are able to find the right balance between passion, purpose, and profit, then we are really talking about a growing and scalable business. So when we say why we build Zwende, we are saying we understand that people want things that match their style and taste. The way they consume everything around them has changed, and the creative industry has the ability to cater to these new demands and needs. Again, going back to the conversations of all the people before, Professor Disha and Kunal also. It is that correct that people want things, and this industry has the ability to cater to those long tail demands. Then we say we need to build what we call core thinking. What is the core thought on which every decision is going to depend? The core thought we have here at Zwende is that makers have unlimited creativity but limited resources, and customers want products and experiences that match their style and taste. So now you can quickly see that in the core thought there is a very good marriage that's possible. But the issue is that even if you think of how Disha solves or how Caravan Craft solves, right? Traditional retail models are design, manufacture, hold inventory, distribute, and then hope to sell. So the storefronts don't really reflect the possibilities that the maker has. It reflects the limited resources because someone has applied a haircut from the 100 ideas that people or makers have had. They have had to manufacture and hold inventory of maybe 10, 15, 20, correct? And of course, those numbers are changing. So what we truly believe is that, while they are small, while they are independent, very few people succeed because they are able to overcome those limited resources. But there is a lot of potential in the middle class that can still continue because they have the potential. So we need to understand who we are building for. Right. And that's the next part. So we really want to understand who are these makers? What do they do? How do they describe themselves? Correct. And there is hardly somebody who describes themselves in one dimension, that I sell products, because they will say, I teach my art, I teach my craft, I train people, I host shows, I go and do, I do tours, I will be happy to, give you a DIY kit. So they do a bunch of things. And the question is, why then is a solution not available for all of them? And on the other hand, when we say who, it's also the customers, what is their motivation to come back? So I think for all of us, we really need to understand, who it is that we are building it for, and therefore what is their motivation. Having said that, we then need to understand the entire, current functioning of the whole ecosystem and try and map things out to understand how things work today. Right. And that's what we tried to do, to say, why is it fragmented? If people can do multiple things and it's available, when you go to a Shilgram, you can immerse yourself in an experience and buy products and learn about art and craft. But in the online world, why are the silos built? Correct? Why do we have to fragment across platforms for different things? And then once you understand, you have to figure out what not to do. I think it's very, very important, because it's easy to think that we'll do everything. Correct. But I think figuring out what not to do was very, very important for Zwende. Because we said we are not great at manufacturing, design, inventory models, mass market. So we don't want to get into any of those. There are people who are doing this much better than, we can ever do it. So I think that clarity of thought was very, very important. And then building a custom design for the solution that you have in mind, right? And that's why we built Zwende, which brings together a multi-SKU platform for entertainment, learning, and commerce, because people want, makers want to show, teach, and sell, and customers want to watch, learn, and buy. So I think we're adding value at an ecosystem level by bringing all of these on one platform. And so we give people more reason to come back to Zwende and form habits, right? And then embrace technology. I think again in the craft business, what happens is, technology is at an arm's distance, or technology is being used for solving, like I said, distribution, solving supply, solving any of those things. But the question is, can we use technology to bring out the unlimited creativity of makers, which I called out earlier, and which is what Zwende did, right? So if Nike has as a huge brand that sells shoes, and every store has different shoes. Every time you go, you see different shoes. They still have a customizer for their shoes, right? So we said, can we not use that technology and digitize age-old art forms? So today on Zwende, you see that, we have more than 10 billion SKUs, and it could be in trillions also. We stopped literally counting beyond a point, because we use technology and digitize the entire inventory. Correct. So if I ask Disha or Caravan Crafts and say, hey guys, can you make more variations? They can. Correct. So the raw material can be broken or diversified across a variety of product portfolio. Question is then, how do you bring it out? How do you make just-in-time inventory? How do you do on demand? And that is what we help people do. Correct. To find their perfect product. We then use data analytics to predict what should be the ready inventory between raw material and ready product. In what stage should we hold what amount of inventory? Correct. How do we show in real time how the customization works, right? So this is a demo of the customizer. This is the lampshade that's hand painted. It can be made in so many colors, different types of bases, so many artwork, correct? And basically people can customize, choose, visualize in real time, and then place orders, which gets handcrafted and delivered on demand, right? So that's how we build technology. And to enable small makers to compete with large brands, right? Why do you walk into a larger brand? Chances of you finding something that you like are higher, because they have more designs, they turn around things faster. So you keep going back to them, right? So that's why you go. And I think as a business, you want to create what we call growth loops, because you can't continue to rely on digital marketing and Facebook and Instagram, because at some point you'll be burning money. So how do you create growth loops? How do you involve customers and create more of what they want? Correct. So we get feedback, we create digital SKUs that increases sales. We launch more SKUs because of that. Therefore, we get more customers and more feedback comes in. So any feedback we get becomes new product, new design, things. The content layer that we have built allows people to come in and experience more, and then spread the word, get hooked, and keep coming back again and again, even if they don't have a need to purchase a particular product, right? And that's the thing about community. Even Disha mentioned community, right? It is very important to build a community of people who are passionate about art, craft, and everything handcrafted, right? And then we want to ensure that we measure the impact, right? So what is the impact we are creating? At what levels are we creating the impact? How is it, being perceived, or how is it really creating value for each of the stakeholders that we are solving for? And when you say impact will also be, recognized by outside players, right? So Zwende was the only startup to be featured by the Amazon CTO Werner Vogels for using technology to ensure sustainability of art and craft forms, which was very, very unique, correct? And because of all of these initiatives, we were able to create what we call a defensible competitive advantage, correct? Because we thought differently, we built differently, we knew what not to do. And it's small steps that creates a good, advantage over a period of time. And we can't do this without inspiring a very strong and passionate team, right? So getting that team together is also very important. And it goes back to the first slide, where if you have your passion, purpose, and profit, the motivations, aligned well, you will be able to, find the right people to work. We are all, from ISB, and, it is an ISB alumni startup, Zwende. And I'll talk a little more about ISB also towards the end. And when you say team, it's not just your team. Again, Kunal did mention that strategic advisors are very, very important because experience matters. You can have all the passion, but you need people who have been there, done that, who can show you, direction, tell you, potential pitfalls. So we have a very strong strategic advisory team that works with us because in the end, right, it's all about two words. As far as for me, the MBA encompassing my entire MBA goes, for me, it was two words. It was about incentive alignment. Can you align incentives for everybody at every stage, at every point, right? And that's where ISB helped because what we learned at ISB, were concepts and curriculum. Again, like Disha said, it's a lot more than that, correct? The community is very engaged. I think that alumni community that is there at ISB, the community of staff and faculty, it's just tremendous. It allowed us to change our thinking. It allowed us to change for good, right? And we know that change is the only constant. And there is capital also that Zwende provides. So in fact, that ISB provides. In fact, I was one of the startups incubated by ISB. So they had a program back then for funding startups. So I think, bringing all of these together is the great part of institutions. And I think institutions can nurture more and more entrepreneurship while as students, we continue to focus on learning. And so I think the larger mission for Zwende, which is again an important thought, is to create the next million art or craftpreneurs. But so that's sort of been the journey. And some of the key points that we talk about in terms of core thinking, building growth loops, and ensuring that we do incentive alignment for every initiative and every project that we pick. So I think that's pretty much what I had to share, and happy to take any questions.
So thanks, Sujay. Thanks, Kunal. Thanks, Disha. Questions have come in. So what I'll do in the interest of time is to very quickly curate some of the questions so that we can go ahead with meeting what the audience is looking for. One of the questions is about customization. Question to Sujay of Zwende. Why are you thinking of venturing into apparel? The customization on lampshades, can that be used for garments as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And great question. So, again, when we said what not to do, at least initially, we said we don't want to get into products that need a fit because fit was a dimension that we didn't understand much. But to answer the question, yes, we will get into apparel at the right time. Conceptually, this is applicable to any industry, right? Or any product category. It's a question of figuring out, what kind of customization we will offer, what kind of apparel we will start with. And again, there are smart ways to do it. So we will start with non-fit apparel, maybe, think of it like dress material or dress pieces, unstitched kurti pieces, where you can offer a bunch of, different customization and increase depth, but then move into fitted later.
Got it. Okay. Question from Desmond, two questions from Desmond. One is, what are the government regulatory hassles when one is pursuing craft business? Or each one of you can answer given your own experiences with this. The second question is what he had asked earlier, was is GI denomination, country of origin, etc., important for craft products? Right? If you can take both the questions, each one of you can respond.
Do you want me to go? Yeah, Kunal, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so Sanjay, I mean, I happen to work with the government very closely. So, the thing is that government is a way also to provide support for the artisan community. So it does a lot in terms of creating a channel for them to get their produce to the market through their crafted food and all of that. But sometimes it becomes a double-edged sword, because often enough, as a mandate to try and help the artisans, they end up picking whatever product the artisan gives them. So there's no quality control. And therefore, over a period of time, the quality starts diminishing. So that's part one. That's the first question. Second question about the GI tag. See, as people are looking for more transparency around the world in terms of product and wanting to know where the product is coming from, the GI tags are becoming more and more interesting in that play. For example, I work with, for the government of Karnataka, we work with this group of artisans in North Karnataka who make kolhapuri chappals. And while we have a larger artisan community in Karnataka, the name actually belongs to a different state, right? So they own the name tag. So we're actually looking at creating a different brand we've created a product line which is significantly different from the traditional kolhapuri chappal, and remove some of the pain points associated with the functional aspects of a kolhapuri chappal. So in that sense, within the GI tag, which is currently owned by both states, you're also creating an identity for a group of artisans who also practice the craft, but it gives them a kind of a mini identity within the larger identity. So I don't know if that helps answer the question, but that's.
Disha? Hello, Disha? Okay, well, she comes back. Sujay, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in fact, we have represented this with Shri Anil Agarwal ji also. And GST was one of the issues, correct? For an independent artisan to sell on an online platform, they have to mandatorily have GST registration. Now, that became a huge hurdle for us because we were literally running an accounting company in the back end. Because we moved from 30 sellers to 500 or 600 sellers, and imagine having to do GST for all of them because otherwise they can't sell online, correct? So I think that on one hand they're saying support small, but to have an independent artist need to register for GST for selling on online portals was a huge hurdle that we are continuing to face. The second is, while public policy or let's say e-commerce policy in India is being shaped for, let's say the Amazons, the Flipkarts and the larger platforms, it becomes very difficult for smaller platforms like Zwende to comply with all of those rules, correct? Especially in case of trying to attract foreign direct investment for solving the sustainability of art and craft forms. So we took more than 6 months to do restructuring and navigate through all the press note 2 rules. So it becomes very, very complex for small startups that need to comply with rules and regulations. So I would say one is the GST relaxation, and the second is relaxation for rules in the e-commerce space for smaller startups.
Okay. I think Disha has dropped out. Arunima, can you just check if she's around? Don't see her name here, strangely enough. Okay. Now, question again to Sujay and Kunal. How does one go about reaching artisans? The question has come from an anonymous attendee. How does one go out to reach all the artisans, make sure the quality is appropriate, they're trained, the products are certified? How does one curate that set? and then create that network? Kunal, you can go first.
Yeah, so Sanjay, when we started out with Caravan, I was very clear, with my initial experience of dealing with some of the artisans, is that there is some resistance to new people coming in. And I think this is something that Disha mentioned earlier on in her presentation, that they want to be assured that you are a serious buyer. They want to be assured that you're not going to waste their time, because a lot of college students go there and spend a lot of time with them, but they really don't get any economic value out of that. I think the good thing for us was we partnered NSDC, the early days. So as a result, we got access to large communities of artisans, and in fact, we've written the national handbook for weaving for the country. So we're quite deeply embedded in the system in terms of reaching out to communities. The question that arises is it a question of curation or is it a question of creation? And I think it's been proven time and again that curation will not suffice. Because if you're just looking at taking the products that the artisans make and take them to market, unfortunately, there will be a gap, and that gap cannot be filled. Unless somebody takes on the responsibility of co-creation with the artisan communities, which involves pretty much everything, including looking at what they're currently working on, what their skill sets are, what tools do they use, what raw materials do they use, and then working on each aspect of those and seeing what do you actually see as market relevance for that particular craft. And then, put those dots together and then prioritize in terms of which are the interventions you'd like to take on first, so that you create greater economic value for them as you start out, because then that's what builds motivation for them and momentum for the program. So that's broadly the approach that we use when we engage with us.
Sujay?
Yeah, I completely resonate and agree with everything Kunal said. And I think that is really at the truth, that it can't be just curation. You have to co-create with them. You have to figure out how we can create more of what people want. And I think it also goes back to the professor's chat early on, where he said, what are these trends? Where do these trends come from? Correct. It is something a few people try to push down, on people. But I think consumer tastes today are long tail, right? And I think we'll all admit that we want things, and that's fundamentally what we believe at Zwende. Correct. So we have to figure out how to build that long tail. Right? And therefore, creation and co-creation are supremely important. It cannot stop at curation. Yes, curation is a short-term benefit because you will have to start with some people who you can bet on initially. So to that extent, curation is important. But if it has to grow into, millions of artisans, it can't be curation, right? You have to be able to empower them. And that's where I think using more technology, having designer interventions. You imagine the number of students graduating from NIFT, NID, Shrishti, any of the design schools. Again, going back to the professor's chat. And even Kunal mentioned that they go and spend a lot of time with the artisans, but does not, result in economic value. How can we facilitate more economic value with those activities? And I think the design intervention will have to come from these layer of designers and customers co-creating with the artisans. And that's something that is a black hole right now. But that is exactly the toughest problem to solve in this, is quality at scale.
So how would you go about, let's say, since many of the audience members are keen to know this, how does one go about creating this artisan network, right? I mean, there's God knows how many artisans there are across how many kinds of art forms and craft forms. How does one go about that process to ensure that you get quality, you get consistency in delivery and things like that? Kunal first and then Sujay. Yeah.
Sanjay, for me, actually, it's not so much. So we don't start with the artisan groups. We start with the customer.
Got it.
Because eventually it's about what you want to create for the customer. And then you see the relevance of which particular practice, traditional craft practice, aligns with that final output. And once you've identified the artisan community, then you can find multiple ways to access the artisan community.
So just give us one or two such suggestions, Kunal,
so you can
for
go
the
through
benefit
local
of the
government.
audience.
Most governments are very, very receptive to people coming and working. You can work with design institutes. You can work through. There are NGOs that work in the local areas. So there are multiple ways to access the artisan. Also, you can approach them directly. The point is that there are communities of artisans that are residing in locations, right? So you know where the locations are. There's enough and more data available with NID and NIFT, which captures pretty much the entire artisanal map of the country. So once you figure out which are the kind of communities you want to work with, then the best thing is to go and identify the key people there, and then you have to get deeper involved. You have to take much deeper.
Roll up your sleeves.
And also I think the respect from the artisan only comes when you speak their language. If you can understand what they do, what their process is, right? And you can add value to that process, they will listen to you.
Got it.
But if you're just going to go and say, listen, we want to learn from you, and then we want to try and figure out how we can help you, I think it's a very loose conversation.
Understand.
Right. So there's a lot of homework that's required before you actually even get to the artisan.
Got it. Okay. Sujay?
Yeah. So I think, so Sanjay, if you think about, again, the origins and how things have been working over the years, correct? There are so many people who are working at the grassroots level already. So I think the question would be, how do you tap into these people, correct? There are NGOs, there are, in the wake of COVID, so many new groups have come together, correct? One of the groups I'm part of is a group called the Creative Dignity.
We are losing you, Sujay. It's
they
not
have
clear.
So many volunteers all over India level. Okay.
Sujay, can you repeat what you just said?
Now?
Yeah, can you just repeat what you said? I think you mentioned the names of some artisan group.
Yeah. So I'm saying that there are lots of NGOs who are doing great work at the grassroots level. Correct. So question is, how do we tap into the NGOs? Second, there are groups that have come together, like the Creative Dignity is one network, correct, which has volunteers all over India and are looking to understand really the creative and life problems of artists and help them thrive, with dignity. So plugging into these networks will be a great way to reach more artisans. I think we should not replicate their efforts, which have already been done. And I think we should build on top of the efforts that are already going on at grassroots level. We have, I think every state has its own craft council. So going through craft councils, going through NGOs, maybe we create a repository for all of these people. So I think I would take that approach to reach more and more artisans. The second thing, Sanjay, is even artisans today have started becoming active on social media, right? And Instagram and platforms like that have made it easy for them to create a presence. Whether they scale or grow, that's a second problem. Right? Have been engaging more with technology, given it's all possible on a mobile phone. So I think let's not forget that even for the artisan craft sector, social media continues to be a great way to identify and reach them.
Got it. I just need to make a quick announcement regarding Disha Singh of Zouk. She's having network problems and is therefore unable to join us. So we will miss her inputs. Those of you who wish to reach out to her, kindly send a email to aarohana@niceorg.in. We will make sure that all of those questions are collated, sent off to her, and we'll try and get her responses for the benefit of all. Question has now come in from anonymous attendee. There's also another question from Majid. He says, I'm the son of an artisan of Ajrak craft from Kutch. I'm planning to resign my job. I want to understand how does he jump into his ancient craft business? Is there any particular set of advice that you wish to give him? Second was relating to this question from an anonymous attendee who says, this whole business of co-creation, that is between designers and artisans, can you just provide some light on how that works? And the individual is also asking the question because he or she is also working in a co-creation mode with artisans for his or her brand. So if you can throw some light, that would be helpful on both of these points. Sujay?
Yeah, sure. So I think at least I can talk about small ways in which we have tried to solve it, right? And like I said, the monetizable unit for the artisan or the designer is maybe an hour of their time. Correct. So question is, how do you align the incentive for both of them to work together and work on something? Again, like Kunal said, if you start with the customer, you're creating more of what customers want. And so the risk appetite will sort of reduce, correct? And that's where, so at Zwende, we use data analytics. We use data from customers to say, I want more of red, I want more of peacock, or I want more of, and because we digitally create inventory, that's one way to solve it. Because, there is no heartburn of having spent a lot of inventory or time creating inventory that may or may not sell, correct? So we take ideas, we take concepts, and we are able to digitally create those things, and we are able to create it at scale. We are able to throw so many combinations out there and see what customers want before, think of it like a Kickstarter world, right? It's a concept thrown out there. The clicks, the data that comes in will tell you what to make more of. So that's one way to solve for the co-creation. I think the second way is to align the incentive, and I think what we have seen, right, is the pricing models are not great when it comes to the art and craft sector. There is no thought going into why the products are priced in a particular manner. There is variable pricing. So I think that education is very, very important in the art and craft sector, so that the artisan, the designer, and the marketplace or any channel of sale, correct, recover their cost. And typically what we have seen is one issue is cost structure, but the second is wrong pricing. Pricing low is not a good strategy. Most of them don't have an MRP. They don't understand how to work backwards with MRP and build commission structures and discounts for direct purchase. So I think that organized industry, what they have solved for, and it's very simple. Honestly, it's very simple. But it needs a mind shift. Again, like Kunal said, if you can understand the artisan's real problem and issue and explain it to them very simply, and if you can have somebody who he trusts explaining it to them, which could be the NGO or creative dignity platforms, then it makes it easier for us to work with them.
Got it. Kunal, do you want to add to that? Hello, Kunal?
Hello.
Yeah, you are on mute, yes.
Yeah. So, Sanjay, the first question regarding the gentleman who wants to do something with Ajrak, I'm not quite clear about the question.
No, if you can just give some advice on, because he's planning to quit his job and jump into this. It is a family business. So any sort of tips, let's say?
I think Ajrak is a great craft. I mean, I've been a big fan of Ajrak, and it has multiple ways in which it can express itself. There are multiple product types it lends itself to. I think the key thing is figuring out, again, see, like I said, it's all about the customer. So if you figure out who your customer is and what kind of business model work backwards from there. So if you're building a B2B model, you look at it very differently. If you look at a B2C model, then you've got to have a completely different plan. And then you'll get more into brand and all of that. So that's completely different.
Got it.
On the second question, again, sorry, if you could just repeat the question again.
The second question was actually about this whole business of co-creation, right? I mean, designer versus.
So again, see, there's no one answer for this. It's not as simplistic as how does one co-create? I think every craft practice has its own nuances, and every end product has its own functional requirements, right? So the challenge really is to be able to figure out a way to bridge the two.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So unless you can create an effective bridge between the alignment to functional quality, using the traditional craft practices that these people have grown up with, right, you'll never be able to create value.
Understand. Okay. So I think, I think that brings us toward the end of this very interesting panel discussion. We could have gone on for several hours, I would imagine. But I think the key points as a kind of a summary for everybody is that don't ever forget the importance of understanding the customer and the market, because whatever design inputs, whatever nuances, etc., are developed, they're developed in conjunction with the market. Number two, when we work with the artisans and think of designs, all of it has to ultimately satisfy a customer demand. And it's important to keep that in mind. Third is, one can't just be superficial about it. One has to dive deep, embed oneself into the different kinds of art and craft forms, and really understand, like you said, all the nuances, understand what these groups actually do, how do they do it, and engage in a conversation with them. And that is an important thing to be done. Fourth is use these technology platforms that exist to be able to reach out to different customer groups and segments, and use data, like Sujay effectively said, to really figure out who the customers are, what products are selling, what designs are really in vogue, and then work with the artisans. And that's a process that gets refined over time. There is no magic button here. There is no switch that will actually say, yes, you're going to be successful, or no, you're not going to be successful. It's a process of discovery. It's a process of iteration that has to be gone through. So with that, I will call an end to this panel discussion. Thank you both for being here. Thank you also to Disha Singh, who unfortunately is not hearing this, but we will record this and send it off to her. I urge every one of you in the audience to please send in all your questions to Aarohana at niceorg.in. Please take a look at our website, niceorg.in. Check out the LinkedIn page, join it, and take a look at the videos that will be put up on our YouTube link as well. That's been shared in the chat window. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Kunal, for making time. Thank you, Sujay. And thank you, Disha. And thanks to you all audience members for being part of this most wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajay.
Thanks, Kunal. Thanks,
Thank you.
Sujay.